Hey guys, welcome back to another Cultured Boys discussion. I'm Pepe and I'm joined by Nathan. And this week we're back to the Manga Corner. Yay!
Yay!
So, if you watched our previous episode, our last Manga Corner was on Pooh's Fuku Jaguar. And this week we're doing a Nathan series because last week was one of mine. So, Nathan, what have we read this week?
This week, if you saw the posts anywhere, we're reading Shudan, one of those sports series that I read way back when that died too early, like most of the sports series I read.
Yeah, it's just like, we always make the running joke that Nathan starts series and then they just die very quickly. It's just what happens to him,
Yep.
sadly.
Yep.
But yeah, Shudan only had 32 chapters.
It was very short. It was gone as quickly as it came. Like,
Yeah, started in June 2017, ended in January 2018.
yes, it had like 6 months. Well, less than, because it was June 12th to January 4th.
Yeah, but yeah, so give us a little rundown of this, Nathan. What exactly is Shudan?
Okay, so Shudan, created by Takuma Yokota, is about I guess for us the equivalent is primary school. It's a kids like football team.
They're
Kids,
grade six, aren't they? Sixth
yeah.
grade.
So that's like I guess like year six ish. Like
I
so it's like
assume I
a
assume it's the same. Yeah, like a junior
yeah like a
junior kind of
kids
thing.
junior football team, like
Yeah.
weekend team thing. They're called Hamanishi FC, and it's basically these kids on this team live in a certain prefecture that's known as like the football ground, like the football heaven. That's where everybody plays football or soccer. It basically just follows this little team of kids who sort of just do it for the sake of doing something. They don't hate football, but they're not exactly like enthused about it. It follows mainly the main character, I guess, Soshi Sakurada and Akira Nanase. But there are some of the other team members that feature quite a lot, but it's kind of really those two because they're neighbors. Nanase is she just moved to the town and she's a girl, and they're little kids. They're all boys, little boys, so they're like girls, girls can't play football. But she proves them wrong because she loves football. She's the exception to the rule. She absolutely loves the sport, and she basically is like, "Hey, you've got a really like good team here. I don't understand why you guys aren't better." And so she's basically like, "Oh, it's because none of us really care. Like we just do it for the sake of doing it. Uh, you know, some of us are good at stuff, but we're not about the winning." And it's basically how they grow as a team because Nanase comes in and just sort of brings that, like, they call it fighting spirit, but she brings like the enthusiasm and the like what's the word I'm looking for? Confidence, that's it. The confidence in themselves. And so the whole team eventually like pulls together and they go from being like one of the worst teams in the region to like start growing into a better team. But that's where you get the problem of it was getting axed. So then partway through that, there's just a random time skip. And they go from being
Yeah.
like 10 or 11 to 16. And then so the story gets very rushed, obviously, because it's getting cancelled. So the second half isn't as cohesive and it doesn't feel as good because it's the whole team. Yeah, I remember you guys. We haven't spoken in like 4 years or whatever because we all went to different secondary schools, like different high schools. And you still play football? Oh yeah, kind of. Do you still play football? Nah, I gave that up. Like it's that kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, yeah, it's just
So
different.
the second half it is really sad because like the first half is actually pretty good,
Yeah, it just
but
didn't really pull through. I didn't
yeah,
really.
it just didn't get the readership, but it didn't get the numbers. So
Yeah. So like yeah, so I read the first five chapters of it. Like obviously that's what the whole rule of the manga
Manga
club,
Corner,
whatever
yeah.
manga corner is, manga club. Um
I guess we
but
could have called
yeah,
it a manga club.
we could
Like,
have called it whatever the fuck we wanted to.
yeah, true.
But yeah, like so I read the first five chapters of it. And it really does scream like the kind of typical like football series. Like the fact that it's like teamwork kind of thing. Obviously, they try to work harder together. You got your main characters there. I could like you're right. I could see the potential in this. Like I think maybe 2017, 2018. Was Kuroko no Basket still going around then? I can't remember.
I think it was.
This is one thing you have to kind of remember with this kind of series at the time. It's what other sports series are in Jump at the same time.
Yeah, that was the problem. I think that was close to where Kuroko was ending, but
Yeah,
Haikyuu was at
Haiku
its
is still going
peak.
strong.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
that was
like
like a big
super
series.
high up there, and it was just basically if you're not pulling Haikyuu numbers and you're not coming to the close to the numbers of ending
Yeah.
Kuroko, like you basically won't continue.
That it's tough though because like realistically, what Kuroko had was like it kind of had that supernatural element to it, didn't it?
Yeah,
Like where you had, oh yeah, all of the like generation miracles had some kind of quirk or power, whereas Haikyuu very much was. It was grounded in reality. This is like, oh, this guy's got maybe like a better like I don't know. I don't even know, Spike or something like that. Let's just
yeah,
say that for a moment because I can't remember everything about Haikyuu. It's been a while. Even though I did read it, like it was one of my favorite series. But yeah, like Haiku is very much grounded in reality. Kuroko is a bit more fantastical, and obviously Shudan's here, probably pulling like what is very similar to Haikyuu, like in terms of story.
yeah. But the thing is with Shudan, I think it just had lower stakes.
Yes. Oh, 100%, especially with like was it like sixth graders, like 10-year-olds playing football
Yeah,
in like what again, it kind of really sets the standard where they're like half the teams like, oh yeah, we're just playing for fun kind of thing. Like this is like a Sunday club. Like, oh yeah, we just play football every week or whatever. Like it kind of just like feels like like you said, low stakes. The first chapter, for example, is all about character introductions. There isn't really a major inconvenience that happens to the
yeah,
characters. It's a slow start, or very like there isn't enough risk in it, like you said. There isn't much like, oh, okay, these guys could like lose their football team or something like that. Like, whereas I say Haiku, for example, it was focusing on Hinata and the fact that like he's the only one that plays volleyball. Weirdly enough, little bit of a similar situation in terms of like Hinata was the only one that played volleyball, and he tried to get a team together that wanted to play, but they I don't know, he just couldn't find a team, and then he obviously moved on to a better school where it had other people that actually played volleyball.
yeah,
So okay, so that was a thing, and that like his rival that he made in the first chapter also became his teammate within that same chapter. So that's a little bit like, oh, that's an interesting scenario. Whereas the interesting scenario here is like, oh, there's a girl that's joined our team. Oh, she's also pretty good. Oh, she's also my neighbor, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's fine. But what is the what is the trouble that's coming from this? There isn't
yeah.
anything
The
mad
troubles
that
don't
comes to it.
really come in until like the later. And I think that's the thing. It was too much of a slow burn
Yeah.
that it
It's a
just
happy series though. That's the one thing. It is all about teamwork. It is all about the game. And it like it's not again, it's not a bad chapter at all by any means.
yeah.
It's just compared to what else is out there at the time, it's rough. That's the one thing. It's hard to stand out with it.
Honestly, I really enjoyed it for
Mhm.
obviously because I recommended it, but it was just a very easy, like happy-go-lucky read. You know,
Exactly that, yeah.
you like really empathize with the team because they didn't care if they win or lose, so you kind of also didn't care. But at the same time, you sort of cared about watching these characters grow as a team together. Because, like, I didn't mention some of the other characters, but like they've got Roku, who's actually pretty good, but for reasons unknown to the rest of the team, he just sort of like hides a lot of his talent. You've got like kids who do care for whatever reason, like the captain Yamato or Yasu, the goalkeeper, the taller
Mm.
kid. Like,
There's certain characters that do stand out a bit more and do have more personality. You're right. Those five that we've said are the ones that kind of like there's others. Obviously, there's others, but like
yeah,
they're really background characters if you
they
call
are.
them that.
They're
Like
like the
yeah,
secondary characters.
yeah. I mean, if you could even call it that at some point, man. Like they barely have lines.
That is true. But like, yeah, like each character has their own motivations, and it's like because they're kids, it's like very simple.
Yeah.
Like the only reason Nanase joins Hamanishi is because it's the closest football team, and it's just her and her mum. Her mum works a lot, so she doesn't want to inconvenience her mum, so she didn't go to one of the better teams that would require more time and are further away because, her neighbor's also Soshi, who's on Hamanishi, so, his mum drives her and picks her up too. They all go together, and it's like it's just small things like that that sort of made me really enjoy this series because it was really lighthearted and it was going somewhere. Because I read 7 chapters, but I've, like, obviously read the whole series before,
Mhm.
and somewhere in the middle, Soshi, Roku, and Nanase, they actually get invited to what they call the training.
Okay, ominous.
And it's basically in this prefecture, there's one team that's really, really good. And, like, you basically, if their coach or their people recognize your talent, regardless of the team, you get invited to this one training session. And in that training session, that's where all the best players from the region, from the prefecture are playing.
Okay, yeah.
So it's, like, really important if you care about football. But that's where their team starts to realize. Soshi, Roku, Nanase, they're like their 3 best players. They go to this training session and they start realizing we're really, really small fish in a really big pond because they beat their rivals, quote unquote, and then they beat the mouthy kid. I forget his name in the later chapters, and a really tall kid. So they beat them, their team, and then they all get invited to that session. But that's where Nanase realizes she's not as good as she thought she was. Roku is actually better than he lets on, but even he's struggling and he's the best out of them all. And Soshi is realizing that even though he's fast, he's not as fast as some of these other people. And that's like where they start realizing they really need to work harder. And it becomes more difficult because,
That gives them the motivation. That kind of thing gives them the kind of plot point at that point. Oh
yeah,
yeah, let's train and let's actually make our team better. My thing is with that, it feels a little too late.
that
By
is.
chapter 7, I understand, like, you're completely right with the it's lighthearted. That's why it really comes through in those first few chapters because it is lighthearted. It's easygoing. Sure, there might be occasional matches here and there, but it is nice. But that's the one thing. Sometimes nice doesn't exactly cut it that hard when you're actually trying to make a
Exactly.
manga
And,
survive.
like,
I can understand why it's
that
kind
training
of
session, I don't think is till I think maybe another 3 chapters after I stopped. So, like, maybe
yeah,
not till, like, 10,
yeah.
10
God,
onwards,
so
and that's, like,
that's a third through the
almost
series,
halfway
and
through its run, yeah, like,
yeah.
it's not good enough, which is a shame because they all do start pulling together. They start really training, they do outside sessions, like, you learn more about Roku's background. Turns out he's, like, from sort of, like, a rich family, but I can't remember if he's, like, the kid that they rag on in the family or if he's supposed to be important and he just sort of is shirking all of his responsibilities. I can't
I
remember
get that. It's the
exactly
whole
how it
rich.
is.
I do get the rich family trope kind of thing
Yeah,
where it's like,
it's
yeah, I
that
get that.
trope, but I can't remember which version of the trope it is. But basically, he's from,
Yeah,
like, an important family and he shouldn't even really be playing on the football team.
yeah,
The family don't approve of it for whatever
of
reason.
course, yeah,
Um
yeah.
And then you find out, like, the reason Yamato takes it so seriously is because, like, football is the only time he's allowed to have fun because he's got a helicopter mum, and she's just constantly like, "Study, study, do this, be good," but, like,
Mm.
she wants him to be perfect, and he's like, "Football's the only time I get to be myself."
Yeah, I see, I see. So yeah, it's good to that like those characters do get a bit more backstory with that kind of thing.
Yeah, it is really a shame what happens to the series. Like,
It's quite interesting because I recognize the art from this very quickly as well. Because I always remember you talking about Shudan, but I never really actually looked into it myself. And this is the same author and artist as I feel like I mentioned it in our manga through the decades. The series Straighten Up, Welcome to Shikahai's Competitive Dance Club.
is it?
It is the same person that's did this. And funny enough, Shikahai Competitive Dance Club was the manga before Shudan. So
Oh,
Dance Club ended in February 2017.
wow. That's really tight turnover.
Yeah, it really was, wasn't it? Like that was like literally a few months and then just straight back into the magazine again. Dance
Whoa.
Club lasted for roughly just under 2 years. So that lasted 87 chapters. So that's the one thing when I immediately when I saw this, I was like, "This, I know this author, I know this mangaka," and it's interesting how I think personally, I prefer Dance Club a bit more than this, but I think it's because it was a unique story. Like I've
Fair.
never seen like a competitive dance manga. I'm in no way interested in competitive dance, but I read this and I was like, this is like it's got wacky characters in it, characters that stand out a bit more. Like literally, like some like the club leader of the dance club is like this wacky like Bobobo looking motherfucker,
Oh
and,
god.
and like like it's all very much into dance and like obviously they like brush up for the actual like when you start learning about comparative dance itself, it's like oh I didn't know this is a thing or I didn't know this is a thing, and obviously it's all within like a school club as well, so you're learning about that. But this is my one thing with Shudan is that, in my opinion, it kind of takes a step back from what was so unique with Dance Club, and it falls into some of the generic stuff in other mangas, in my opinion.
I could see that.
Yeah, like you said, it's quite a quick turnaround. I'm interested to know why they went in that direction so quickly as well, because I don't think I've ever seen a mangaka go from like
Yeah,
a
one
se
series to another series
in
within
the space of
uh,
months, like
yeah. That's like what, 3 months?
oh, yeah, literally,
4
like,
months? Like
even then, that's
yeah, it's like
like,
3 and a bit months. Like it's
yeah,
very, very unusual to see that
yeah.
happen.
Like, we've seen other mangaka, like, the person that did, Kuroko no Basket, like, they did a manga, what was it, like, about I think between that and Robot Laserbeam, that
I
must
feel
have
like that
been
must have been
maybe
a year? Yeah, I was
a
thinking
year at
that.
least, and even then, they've come back with another series right now. I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah, I haven't got into it yet.
But even like the author of Shokugeki no Soma as well, that ended
Oh,
must
that
be like
ages
at
ago,
least
isn't it?
2 years, 2 years at least, I think. And that is like that is new series again just started like recently, and it's such a unique series as well. Like I've already read the first chapter of it, but like that's like it's such a unique selling point, which makes me think like why is this like mangaka given so little time to come up with a new series and it's published straight away. Like it doesn't it really just doesn't make sense to me.
It does boggle the mind a bit.
Yeah. Like I don't know, I feel like if they had more time to come up with a series, like even if it was still a football series, I feel like maybe more time could have helped like come up with more unique points in it or something like that. I don't know. I'm not a professional. I'm just this guy talking on the internet. like my I could be so wrong, but yeah.
I couldn't yeah, at the time, I couldn't think of any other football manga.
Yeah.
I mean, full honesty, the reason I got into Shudan was because I played Inazuma 11, the first one, like, a few
Yeah,
years
yeah.
before this, and this really had that same sort of vibe, except, like, Inazuma 11, the game had more like a Kuroko no Basket vibe, like, they had some supernatural powers or whatever. This is more this fell more into Haikyuu, but because they were kids, like, and they all had their sort of special thing that they were better at than anyone else, like, Yamato's got a really strong kick, so the coach called it a wave cannon. And it's like, I got into that because I was like, that's the kind of thing a kid would do, you know, like, oh,
Mhm. Just
this
kick
is
it as
my
hard as
special move, my wave cannon. You know what I mean? Like, you can see a kid saying shit like
absolutely,
that,
yeah.
or you can see like certain things like that. I don't know. I really like the first half of this,
Mhm.
and the second half. Again, it's a shame it was getting axed, so they did what they did. But like the second half really feels like if this series had had enough time to do everything it wanted to, that would have been sort of like the ending of it all, or maybe would have been its continuation series.
Honestly, with the time skip kind of thing, I will say that Shikahai Dance Club did end in a very similar way, in the fact that there was a time skip to the, like, final tournament, like
I remember a lot of mangas at that time period were doing that though. That's how they would end. You'd get some sort of time
oh, yeah.
skip,
Oh,
and then it's just like
yeah.
that whole middle section of manga was just like because I remember you and me were constantly like, why the fuck does everyone do a time skip now?
Yeah, and then it's like, that's the reason. Like, that's
Yeah,
specific. I remember, like, Robot Laserbeam was like that
time
did a
skip.
time skip, and I
Yeah,
was
and then
like,
we're like, what?
why? Why is it done there? Like, and it was genuinely like one of the most ridiculous. I think that's why I got what put me off the series is there was a time skip. Obviously, they're floundering and trying to get like get a decent ending together, I guess. But God,
Like,
it
at least
was.
if you're comparing the two, at least in this time skip for Shudan, they got older and they look different.
Oh yeah,
In Robot
that's
Laserbeam, it was a time skip, and all that happened was he graduated from school and became a professional golfer. That's it. So he still looked the same.
yeah.
You couldn't really tell until they told you. At least with Shudan, it was like, oh, okay, they're taller. They kind of look the
It
same,
makes it,
but like they're
it
much
makes a lot
bigger.
more sense when they're like 11 years old or
Yeah,
whatever.
to
Like you can
16.
actually,
Like,
yeah, you can make a difference with that kind of thing. But yeah, I get what you mean completely. It's a shame, really, because like I said before, this series does have potential. It is a really nice series.
I think it easily could have done, even as the kids before time skip, you could have done a whole run of them getting through maybe most of a tournament, you know? Because they were already sort of doing that before they got the axe notice. So it's like you could do most of them getting through a tournament, and then it's just like, cool. Now we time skip, and they're a bit older, and they're not all still playing, but they're still in
Yeah,
contact. Maybe I don't know, maybe they revived the team because they did try to do that, but not in a official sense. It was more just to get together again so that all the characters could be there for like the final
the
chapter.
final thing. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's how it works.
It was
Okay,
a
cool.
nice ending considering the circumstance, but like, you know, I would have liked to have seen like a more successful like teenage team where they like are still a group and they if have improved to the point where they're like taking on crazy teams from across the country, not just the prefecture. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I think there's only so much you can do, especially when it's cut down so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there anything else we want to say about Shudan at all? Is there anything?
um I it's going to be a pointless statement because it's never going to happen. I'd love for it to come back, continue from when they were kids, but it's never going to happen. Let's face it. Like when manga
Mm,
dies, it's very rarely that any of them come back.
yeah, it's tough that like it had to be a really like AAA manga to
Yeah,
actually
exactly.
like.
Like the only ones that come back are fucking like Dragon Ball, Naruto, and Boruto. Like it's the big ones. But if you want to read a nice light-hearted series that's based in reality and is about football, and you kind of like football, I recommend it.
Yeah.
It's not very long, and you'll quickly hit the point where they time skip. But
Yeah.
for its run, at least in the section as kids, I really enjoyed it, and I really
Yeah.
think it's worth reading.
Okay, yeah. So like it's one of those ones like if anyone's into that kind of like sports, like high school sports, like your high cues, like your like kind of in some ways Kuroko no baskets, like you said, even Inazuma 11.
Yeah,
Like this would be the manga you'd recommend for that kind of group, wouldn't it? Like
yeah,
if you're that into that kind of thing.
for sure. If
Yeah.
you like Inazuma 11, like you probably would like this because it's very similar vibes.
Hmm.
It was like I almost drew direct parallels because Inazuma 11 was also like a school football team and a bunch of kids who were like on a team that used to be really good, and are trying to get better. Whereas in Shudan, it was just a team of kids who could be good, but they didn't care, and then they get better. But it was still the same sort of vibes to me. So if you like Inazuma 11, you might like this as well.
Okay, fair enough. I think that pretty much wraps up, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, nice one. Well, thank you for listening to another one of our manga corner guys. If you have a suggestion for us, maybe that we could read, like hit us up. Let us know what you think about Shudan. Have you read it before? Are you gonna read it? Let us know. And as always, like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell button. Find all the links to our podcast stuff in the description below. We're also on Twitter. Find us on that. And yeah, I guess we'll catch you next time for another Cultured Boys episode. Bye bye.
bye.